anger and wrath is upon them. That is a curse in this life and in the next. So they are cursed in this life, and they are cursed in the next life, and they are cursed on the tongues of prophets and of angels. Now, unfortunately, our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam warned us in a hadith. He said to his companions that after me, you will follow them inch by inch, foot by foot. So much so that even if they jump into the hole of a sand lizard, you will jump in right after them. And the companions asked, who are you talking about, the Jews and the Christians? And he said, whom else? Whom else? That you're going to follow them foot by foot, inch by inch. You'll follow them so much that if they jump in the hole of a lizard, you go right behind them. Meaning you will do the things that they do. And when it comes to, there are many things I can go on about this forever, but one big one is this one. Concealment of the truth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen is one thing that we have fallen into. Now, the Jews, Bani Israel, they do it actively. They actively conceal the proofs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do it, actively. They will erase and distort and change and warp. Now, as a whole, this ummah does not do it actively. There are some of us that do it actively, but that, of course, leads to kufr. But we are more passive in our concealment. We are more passive in our concealment, but yet the warning is still there for the concealment. How do we passively conceal the truth of Islam? Can any of you give me an instance of what may be a passive concealment of the truth? What do I mean by passive concealment? Any ideas? To passively conceal the truth means to just sit there and not actively become involved in propagating the truth in the face of rampant lies. For instance, we see and this is also a ruling of the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you see a lie being spread about Allah and His religion and His deen and His prophet and His messenger, and lies and slanders being told about the believers, etc., 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 and you are silent and do nothing in the face of the ability to do something about it, then you are just as guilty. You are just as guilty as the one spreading the lie. You are just as guilty. You are part and parcel to the lie itself due to your passiveness and your inaction. Because we also have authentically from our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, when you see a shar, when you see an evil, what did he say? Change it. Change it. When you see an evil, change it. That is the default ruling. Change it. And then he broke it down, level by level. Change it with your hands. If you can change it with your hands, change it. If you can't change it with your hands, change it with your tongue. Speak out against it. Let the truth be known. And if you're not able to do that, meaning that your life and limb will be at danger if you say something, then at least hate it in your heart. And he said that is the weakest. He even said that's the weakest of faith. But the default ruling is if you see an evil, change it. Now, in our condition, we could put a lot of excuses in the way for not getting involved in changing an evil. But even though our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that the greatest form of jihad was to speak the truth even in the face of the tyrants. To speak the truth even in the face of those who may oppose you for that truth. He said that's one of the greatest forms of fighting for the sake of Allah. But we do have a concession here for this. Now there are places in the world where changing things with our hands is not realistic. It's not realistic. It's not really going to work in that concept. But there is a lot of places in the world where we can get involved with our hands. We can get involved with our hands and actively putting a better face for Islam. Actively getting involved in calling to that which is good actively with our hands, getting involved in the society, getting involved in the homeless shelters, getting involved in the orphanages, getting involved in the anti-drug campaigns and the alcoholism, and all of these things. There's nothing stopping us from doing this. Nothing stopping us from doing this. There are some other things that if we try to put our hands into, it may cause us some fitna, so there may be some concession. I'm not going to go into all the particulars because I don't have the right to give any rulings in that matter. But there are too many things that we have the opportunity to put our hands in the change that we're not doing. But even if we can't put our hands to some things, we do have our right of our tongue. And in Western societies, we are abusing that right. We are abusing that right by not using it. Here in the UK and in America, we have the right to free speech. We have the right to tell the truth. And that is being stripped away from us. Slowly, 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 quickly, quickly, quickly now. It's being stripped away from us the right to say what we want to say. And that's not just us. That's a commonality amongst all of the people living in the West. They're being stripped of their right of free speech. Why? Why are we being stripped of our right of free speech? Because we're not using it. We're misusing it and abusing it, so it is being taken from us. We are not taking it to our advantage, that we have the right to say things. We have the right to do things. And as long as people will not use and abuse it, they will take it away from us. As much as they can take, as much as they can take. And if we're not allowed to speak out, which there are some countries which you can't speak, you're not allowed to speak out. Egypt was a very good, example of that, which they're trying to change. May Allah give them something better than what they had. I'm slightly optimistic, about what may happen. But if you get up in Jum'ah and say what you want to say, you're going to get a visit in the middle of the night. You might not be seen again. So you must at least hate it in your heart in that condition. But we have to ask ourselves, where can I place myself? Where can I place myself? Here in the West, there is no excuse for us not being involved in changing things with our hands as far as evils go. As far as homelessness and spousal abuse, women being abused and all of these things, and as far as the right of not being, our freedoms being taken away from us, the right of the orphans and all of these things, we really have an opportunity. Why is it that when you guys have anti-drug campaigns here in the UK, right? Big anti-drug campaigns. Who's heading those up? Who's usually at the forefront of these? Non-Muslims, Christians, atheists. Why? Why are they at the forefront? Do they have any commands to do this? Most of the time, no. They're just doing it because it's something that's good. So where are we? We have a command for this. We have a command to be involved in this, but we're in the back seat. What? That's ridiculous. We need to be on the forefront. We are the ones that are supposed to be setting that standard. We are supposed to be the ones setting that example. And we're not even really taking the example, much less setting it. When it comes to homelessness and the homeless shelters, who are running these? Nasrani. Most of the Christians are running these. Most of the Christians are running these homeless shelters. Why? Why? This is ludicrous. This is crazy. We have lost our social responsibility in Islam. We have social responsibilities to the society that are built into our religion that we are abusing. And you wonder why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give us dignity. Because we don't deserve it. We don't deserve it. What about orphanages? I'm not gonna call you guys out, but I want to ask you something. And I want you to do not answer me, but answer yourself. Do you know where your closest orphanage is? Do you know, if you walk out of this building right now, could you tell someone where the nearest orphanage is to this building? If not, then you need to question your loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to His message. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, what about orphans? That I and the one who takes care of the orphan will be like what in Jannah? He used an example. What did he say? What did he show when he did this? He went like this. I and the one who takes care of the orphan will be like this in Jannah. Will be like this. Which one of you would not want to be like this with the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, side by side? And the other thing that should click in your mind, an orphanage is filled with what? Children who have no parents, right? Children who have no caretaker, children who have nobody to turn to, no one to put hope in, no one to protect them and defend for their rights. What are those children? What are those children? Muslims. Each and every single one of them. Each and every single one of them are Muslim. Because we know our Rasul said that every child is born on the fitrah of La ilaha illallah until their parents turn them away from that and make them a Jew or a Christian or a Bible worshiper or anything. So they're all Muslims, but we're just allowing them to be taken into the homes of Jews and Christians and Buddhists and atheists and be taken away from the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't think Allah is going to question us about this? If you do not think Allah is going to hold us account for this, then we have a big problem. We need to become involved. يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ, calling to that which is good. And when you see it, people changing. These children need to be brought up believing La ilaha illallah because it's already in them. It's imprinted into their hearts. But they are being taken away from the religion of Allah every single day. We need to become involved. We need to become involved and get involved. I mean, there are Muslims establishing orphanages in other places. I mean, one of my good friends, Hussein, has one of the best orphanages I've ever seen. It's an amazing, amazing place. But we need to start establishing them here, bringing these children off of this life hardship and putting them onto the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is what I mean, that how we actively or passively conceal the truth is that we're not involved in disseminating the truth. And so I'm afraid that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold us accountable because of the fact that we're responsible for all of these people. We're responsible for them. You know better. A lot of them, they don't know better. You may think they know better and they should know better, but they don't. They weren't raised knowing Islam. The only thing they hear about Islam is the crazy disinformation and misinformation that goes on in the media. So they don't know. Whose job is it going to be? Tell them. Whose job is it going to be to tell them? And this is where I'm going to finish with one example. I like to finish with some beautiful example. When we're done, we'll take a break. The importance of this again. When the Prophet ﷺ was given his revelation in the cave of Hira, in Jabal Nur, what was the first command? What was the first command? Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Now, Angel Jibreel alayhi salam gave him a few verses of Surah Al-Iqra, right? Angel Jibreel introduced himself to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, I am Jibreel. He introduced him to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also Jibreel introduced the Prophet to himself. He said, Allah has chosen you to be his last messenger. And then according to the story of the Prophet ﷺ, what happened after that? Jibreel left him, right? He said, it's just like he came, he left. Left me with this huge weight on me. So what did the Prophet ﷺ do? He left the cave and went to his wife and told her what happened. He said, I think I've lost it. What did she tell him? She told him that Allah has never disappointed you, nor will he ever disgrace you. And she verified that by taking him to her uncle Waraqah. And Waraqah used to translate the Torah and the Injil into Arabic. What did Waraqah say? Waraqah said, by Allah, you have been visited by the same angel who visited Musa. And by the same angel who visited all the messenger of Allah, and Allah has chosen you to be his messenger. And Waraqah said, I wish I was a young man. He was very old at the time. He said, I wish I was a young man, so that I could be there to defend you when your people kick you out. And the Prophet ﷺ asked him, when they kicked me out? He said, oh, don't have any question about that. No one came with what you came with, except that their people kicked them out. And he believed them, and he accepted Islam on the spot. But then the Prophet ﷺ said that there was a lapse in the revelation. Jibreel did not come back for a while. There was nothing coming from Allah, so he became very perplexed by this. And one day he said, I was walking out in the desert, just trying to figure out what's going on, and then all of a sudden Jibreel just appeared in the sky and scared me half to death. I'm giving it to you in the English language to break it down the story. He said, Jibreel appeared and scared me to death. And so what did he do? He ran back to Khadija radiallahu anha. And what did he tell her? He told her, Dhamini, cover me up. I think I've lost it. I think I've gone out of my mind. This is getting out of hand. First he shows up and then he leaves, and now he's scaring me in the desert. I don't know what's going on. So he wrapped himself up, and under this mantle, Allah revealed to him his next revelation. And what was that revelation? Ya ayyuhal mudaththir, qum fa'andir. O you who's wrapped in the mantle, arise and warn the people. The command now, the imperative came to get to work. You know who I am. You know who you are. Even though he only had a few verses, doesn't matter.